Hey guys, this is Rick. I hope you're having a great day. This is just a quick preamble to the video. I'm just making a little video follow-up on the one I put up yesterday, and I've just recorded it all, and it's really long. I'm doing a lot of talking and a lot of rambling, and I'm covering lots of subjects. It's sort of a little bit concise, if not a little bit rambly, but it does go on for quite a long time. So this is the sort of thing you could put up maybe in the background as a podcast or a little radio show or something. But just thought I'd give you that little warning. It's quite long, and it's all focused on like the dietary stuff that I'm doing at the moment. So you have been warned. If you want to stick around, enjoy the video. Alright, in today's video I'm going to be doing a little bit of a follow-up on the last video where I was talking about diet and lifestyle, and I thought I would address a few points that have been made and just go into it a little bit further. So first of all, you may notice again that the lip sync is out on this video. You've got visuals of driving along the van, but you've got a layered voiceover, which I did after this was filmed. It's just easier at the moment for me to make this format of video in this way. But anyway, it is what it is. So anyway, you may or may not have realised that the video I put up yesterday was actually made a month ago. At the time, I think I was on like day 34, day 35, something like that, of doing keto. I'm actually now on day 57. It's literally a month after I made that video that I'm making this video today. But I want to say a massive thank you to everybody who commented on that previous video. Lots of you were telling me your stories and were relating to what it was I was doing or am doing. And it was very heartwarming to read and very encouraging as well. So thank you for that. Now, some people did express some concerns. I know there are some people out there who absolutely do not think keto is a good idea. I totally get that. That's fine. Now, there was some other concerns. People saying, have you been checked out by a doctor? Yes, I have had every test like you can think of. I've had cameras inserted where I really don't want to talk about, and I've had blood tests, I've had allergy tests, I've had DNA tests, and I'm essentially one of those people, many people, who once the doctors kind of do all the tests, tick all the boxes, can't find anything wrong, they just send you home and say, right, it's IBS, go live with it. And yes, I have tried all of the recommended advice that they give to everybody, try the low FODMAP diet and try doing this, try not eating that, and I've been through that so many times, and like I say, I've been dealing with this for most of my adult life, and I have tried everything you can think of. Now, if I'm completely honest, I don't have a huge amount of faith in doctors. Now, don't get me wrong, if I break my arm or break a bone or something, they would be the first person I would go to. They would do an excellent job. Anything mechanical, they're absolutely top notch. That's exactly what you want. But for the more nuanced issues, especially with the internet, you just get to hear so many times when people they're just never fixed. The doctors just don't know what it is. They try this, they try that, they load you up with pills and potions and tablets, and they haven't got a clue, especially when it comes to matters of nutrition, which is another thing I'm learning at the moment. When doctors do their training, apparently they have very, very little training on nutrition. Now, I'm very much a believer of the quote, I think it's, let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. And I think that was Hippocrates, is it? I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, but that's the guy who all the doctors make the Hippocratic oath to, because like Hippocrates, I can't say his name, Hippocrates. He was a Greek, I think he was a Greek medic or medicine man or doctor or whatever they call them in those days. And I think he was the one that came up with the quote that it's like, let your food be your medicine and your medicine be your food. And I'm very, very much believe that sort of 90% of all illnesses and all problems can be solved by food. The fuel that you put into your body, you literally do become whatever it is you eat. That's your, whatever morsel of food passes your lips, that's what's used to become the building blocks that maintain and build your body. And so that, for me, it's kind of a very, very logical assumption. And it is assumption. I have no qualifications in this whatsoever, but I have looked at it a lot, and I've sort of studied it and just because it's been an interest of mine, because it's something I am involved with. I've been trying to figure these issues out for most of my adult life. Therefore, I've looked into many, many things. But a number of people suggested quite a few different sort of ways of eating, lifestyles, and I'll be honest with you, I think I've tried probably all of them. Let me think. I've got to start with, I've definitely done the low FODMAP one. That was just purely the standard go-to for anybody certainly in the NHS. They recommend you now go to and do the low FODMAP. This is there are certain fermentable sugars. They got big names. I can't remember what they are, but they take those out of the diet, and many IBS sufferers do well by a low FODMAP diet. Now, I did try the low FODMAP diet and I couldn't get on with it. I still had all the problems. I've tried, everything in moderation, just, smaller portions, just eat normally like normal people. I've tried that obviously for many, many years, and what works for normal people just doesn't work for me, and it didn't work, and, still had the problems. I've tried various elimination diets and pretty much everything out there. I even followed, there's a guy called Dr. McDougall, and he had a starch-based, sort of plant-based, whole foods-based diet. Did that for quite a while and didn't work. Problems didn't go away. I've tried veganism, I've tried vegetarianism, I even had a stab at the cabbage only, I remember that one. I've done the raw foods diet. Good grief, that was probably the worst one I ever did. That was where you don't cook any of the vegetables, you just have everything raw, and it was kind of like a vegetarian raw diet, and I seriously suffered with that one. I did a low sodium one, didn't make an ounce of difference. I've done gluten-free. Now, gluten-free did help a little bit, and it's what helped me to discover that I definitely have an issue with wheat and whole grains. And I have tried loads and loads of different types of whole grains, but I still always get the same results. Whole grains for me are pretty much a no-go. That's, like I said, I dug down quite deep into that, trying to find out all the little nuances, but it just generally seemed to be the grains. I've tried, good grief, yes, I've even tried the banana diet. Went on that, where you're eating like a ridiculous amount of bananas each day, just to see what happens, and that was a disaster. I did fruitarian, where you only live on fruits. Again, I couldn't leave the house ever. I did Mediterranean, where you sort of eat what the Italians eat, lots of olives and lots of olive oil smothered over everything, and fish and stuff like that. And again, it just wasn't giving me the results that I wanted. I've tried high fiber diet. Let's just not even go there. That I just don't even want to talk about it. Just no. I tried the low-fat diet, and again, that came about as some gallstone issues that I had, which I'll talk about in a moment. But that, again, low-fat diet just didn't really seem to work. I didn't lose any weight, and I still had the problems. I've tried calorie counting, and that's just so tedious and just no long-term results. Short-term results. A lot of these things I would get little short-term results, but they were just not sustainable. I've tried fasting. Yeah, that worked, but again, not sustainable. I've tried juice fasting as well, and something called the apple cider vinegar diet. And yes, I am working from a list here, which I wrote down because I couldn't remember them all off the top of my head. But no success whatsoever. The bottom line is nothing solved my issues. I still had the digestive issues, and I was still overweight, and nothing I seemed to try. And literally, I tried all these things over many, many years, and just walked away, and I'm still the same today, although I'm changing now. But like I say, bottom line, nothing solved the issue. And everything needed sort of iron willpower to sustain, and a lot of thought and planning. It was sort of dominated much of my day just to make this way of eating work. And ultimately, I always ended up defaulting back to my status quo, which was just eat anything I wanted and just suffer the consequences and be done with it. But the way I look at it is none of that effort was wasted. All that time I tried all these things, I was learning all the time. So in a sense, it was almost like essential that I went through that, and I learned, which things were going to work for me, which things didn't. So I don't ever consider all the things I did as wasted effort, because again, it was all learning. And now here I am, sort of at the other side of trying all those things. I can make more prescribed decisions based on what I've learned in the past. Now, going back to the gallbladder that I mentioned, a few years ago, I was actually having issues with my gallbladder, and I was scheduled for an operation to have it removed. And I don't know whether it's fate or luck or what, but my paperwork got lost in the system. I got this. I actually had the operation date booked, and then I got this letter from the NHS, and they said, "Look, we're really sorry. We've had to cancel your appointment. You'll hear from us in due course with a new appointment date." And I thought, fair enough. And I didn't think any more about it. And then about, I don't know, a year and a half later, I still hadn't heard anything. And but by then my gallbladder had settled down, and it wasn't giving me any little reminders that, I had an issue. So I just kind of left it. But anyway, like a couple of years later, I had another issue. I had something called a calprotectin test, and it came up like positive, which is like a gut inflammation test. So I had this phone consultation. It was right during the lockdown period, and the guy was going through the paperwork, and he said, "Oh, right, I see we've taken your gallbladder out, and I was like, "Oh, hang on a minute, no, I've still got my gallbladder. Honestly, it's here." And it's almost like he wouldn't believe me. So somehow the paperwork had got all mixed up, and the hospital had me down as someone who had their gallbladder removed. So anyway, he started asking about the gallbladder, and he said, "How is it?" And I said, "Well, it's fine. It sort of seems to have settled down." But he said, "We need to get you in for a scan." I still think he didn't believe that I hadn't had it out. But anyway, they got me in for a scan, and then a number of weeks later, which was probably about 4 months ago, I finally got this letter through from the hospital saying that I had a 17 millimeter single gallstone in a thin-walled gallbladder. And the recommendation was that as long as it doesn't give me any more aggro, I could quite happily live with it without having it removed. And I've since been on a keto diet, a high-fat diet. High fat is what causes gallbladder issues. I've had absolutely no problems whatsoever. So at the moment, I'm really glad I didn't actually go ahead with the operation to get my gallbladder removed, because it does seem to be functioning perfectly well now. Even though I've got a 17 millimeter single gallstone in it, but people can live with gallstones, no problem. A lot of people don't even know they have them. And I think what happened earlier when the gallbladder was playing up, I think it was just it must have been some sort of sludge or something. But since I've been doing high-fat diets, like I say, the gallbladder's perfectly happy as Larry. So obviously if that changes in the future, then I'll have to address it then. But I'm kind of hopeful and almost confident that I don't think I've got any gallbladder issues anymore. So that would be good if that's the case. Obviously, we'll wait and see. But anyway, going back to the diet and fixing my issues, as I said, I've tried so many different things with like zero long-term success, and also working on the principle that like doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results is the sign of madness. I realized I needed to change up my game, and I needed a plan that would make things different this time. So I've already established that, what seems to work for other people really just doesn't seem to work for me. However, one thing, and I did mention this in my previous video, where I did see notable changes that were potentially sustainable, was when I was doing keto, Atkins and keto. Well, I started off years ago with Atkins, but then that evolved into keto. So at least I had a place to start, something to work from. Now, I did keto for almost a whole year a number of years ago, and I did get my life back a little bit from doing it, but I wasn't as determined then as I am now to make it a permanent lifestyle change. Back then, I was in it to just lose weight, and even though I did it for over a year, it was kind of very automatic and I didn't have to think about it. But I wasn't actually achieving my goal, which was to lose weight, and simply because I was overindulging a little bit, because keto foods can be actually quite nice, and I was consuming too many calories to actually successfully lose weight. So after about a year, I just kind of gave up on it because obviously I wasn't achieving my goals. This time round, if I'm looking at keto, it's for better health. And that makes all the difference. And that makes it much more sustainable. And so that was the plan. About 2 months ago, I started up on keto and lost a bit of weight. I felt my digestive issues all starting to heal up, and it was all good things. But I wanted to take it a little bit further because the health issues, they got better but not cured, not completely. So I wanted to take things a little bit further and maybe, just sort of did a bit of scratching around, seeing how I can use keto to try to address these digestive issues. And everything I was looking at kept pointing towards something called the carnivore diet. Now, this is a diet where you only eat meat, fat, like butter, animal-based products. So meat, butter, cheese, and eggs and salt, and that's about it. And don't get me wrong, it's not something I would recommend to anyone. It's really extreme, and it's very, very strict. But it seems that a great many people are turning to it because they, like myself, have all kinds of health issues, especially autoimmune issues, that no other way of eating has ever been able to touch or to solve. And I've been reading and listening to a huge amount of testimonials from people who have pretty much cured themselves by trying a carnivore lifestyle. So obviously it got my attention. And I thought, could I do that? Could I just eat meat? What they say is you should do it for 30 days just to try it out. Just see how you get on for 30 days. Now, during my many hours of looking into this carnivore diet, one of the things I kept consistently stumbling across was something about plants. What they're saying is there are these built-in toxins into plants which they use as a defense mechanism, and they're called phytochemicals, I think, and they're basically formed by the plants to stop things like insects, predators, fungus, things like that. Now, within the carnivore circles, there's this suggestion that some people who are having all these autoimmune issues may be sensitive to these phytochemicals. We're talking about things like lectins, and there's tannins, and something called oxalates. And apparently there's a whole big list of all these weird chemicals that appear in plants. And we're talking broccoli and all the edible vegetables. And it doesn't seem unreasonable to me that the idea that some of these plant chemicals could possibly be playing havoc with some people's digestive systems. It just made a little bit of sense to me, and it got me thinking. I wonder if that really is possibly one of my issues, one of the things that's causing havoc in my system. Well, anyway, so I figured I'll give it a try. 30 days. You can try anything for 30 days. And I thought, go on, what possible harm could I do? I'm eating meat is very, very nutrient dense. It's very sustaining. It's very filling. It's protein. Fat, well, they say you're supposed to eat it with a lot of fat. Because of my training in keto, I understand the principle of using fat for energy and eating fat. So I'm no longer scared off by that idea that we've always been indoctrinated into believing that fat is bad. Luckily I've shrugged that particular dogma off. But anyway, cut a long story short, as I make this video now, we're currently on day 57 of starting keto, and for the last 17 days I've been doing carnivore. I've actually switched up to having a go, and I've only eaten animal-based products. And for the most part, that has just been meat, butter, and salt, and a little bit of fish. I've been doing, I've got some frozen salmon fillets. Now, in just 17 days, everything I've experienced has been, well, pretty positive, I've got to say. And it has given me a little bit of hope. There are a number of side effects that I've also noticed with doing the carnivore diet. For example, I'm only eating one meal a day. Now, that was never my intention. It just came along accidentally, simply because I'm just not hungry. At any time, I'm not hungry ever. If I eat a big steak, like a 10-ounce ribeye steak, I can go literally right through to the next day, 24 hours, and just not be hungry. It's quite strange, quite bizarre. And that's literally what I've been doing. Once a day, I'll cook up a piece of meat with a bit of fish, or just a bit of fish, or maybe some mincemeat, or a burger, or something. Just meat. Have butter with it, so additional fat. And for half an hour a day, I'll eat that meal, and then for the remaining 23 and a half hours, I'm not having anything. And that becomes another side effect of doing the carnivore. You're doing something called intermittent fasting, where for 23 and a half hours a day, you're not eating. Now, I did do lots of studying on something called insulin, which is a hormone that's pretty much responsible for whether or not we lose weight. And I decided to educate myself about insulin a number of years ago, and I've topped up that education as new ideas and evidence has come forward. And my understanding is that by intermittent fasting, you're giving your insulin levels the opportunity to drop right down to past this kind of baseline mark where it triggers a switch that switches from burning fuel from the foods you've eaten to burning your own body fat. And that's what you want. If you want to lose weight, you have to make your body burn its own body fat. And by doing that, or the only time you can do that, is when your insulin levels are low. Now, understanding how insulin works has been a real game changer for me. Essentially, my understanding of it is that every time a morsel of food passes your lips, your insulin hormone is triggered to spike. And when that happens, it switches this switch in your body to stop burning your own body fat. And then it switches over to using whatever you're eating for fuel. And then when you're finished eating, it can take time for the insulin levels to drop back down to sort of below this certain baseline. It's like a switch line. And once the insulin levels drop below that level, it switches back to using your own fat reserves again for fuel. Now, the thing is, if you're something called insulin resistant, which I think I was at least a little bit, if not a lot, and it's one of the reasons I think I've always been overweight. If you're insulin resistant, it takes a long time for that insulin level to drop down below that switch level, which means in many cases your insulin will never get low enough, beyond that baseline switch before you have your next meal. And again, as soon as that little morsel of food passes your lips, the insulin level bounces straight back up again. And so it never drops below that baseline and allows you to burn your own body fat. Now, it's quite possible I messed up big time in trying to explain that. I'm not qualified in any way, shape or form to explain this. I've just looked into it a lot, and this is pretty much what I've picked up. But my understanding is that if you're only eating one meal a day, then your insulin levels are given loads of time and opportunity to sort of drop down below those baseline levels, which allows your body to then start consuming your own body fat for fuel. And that's how you lose body fat, simply by allowing those insulin levels to drop right down. If you're, like I always used to be, constantly grazing through the day, the insulin levels are never given enough opportunity to drop below that baseline to make the switch over to using your body's own fat reserves for fuel. And once I figured that out and realized that is why I've always been overweight, because I've always been a bit of a grazer. I'm always triggering insulin spikes every time I have a snack, and I'm never leaving it long enough between meals for the insulin levels to drop down to start using my own body reserves. Anyway, a very long and complicated story short, I've been putting this theory to the test, and it does, touch wood, appear to be working. So, as I said, I'm like 17 days into doing the carnivore diet, just eating one single meal a day, only meat and butter, and I mean only meat. I'm not having any condiments apart from salt. I'm not having pepper. Apparently that's got lots of oxalates in it. I'm not having any sauces, no horseradish, no mustard, nothing like that. Just pure steak with a little bit of salt. I pre-salt the steak before cooking. So far that was, like I say, 17 days ago I started carnivore, and then 57 days ago I started keto, and so far in weight I've lost just under 2 stone, 25 pounds, that's 11.3 kilograms in 2 months. And I must admit I am feeling pretty pleased with myself, because, and most importantly, it has been, I'm not going to say an effortless breeze, but it has been surprisingly doable. And for somebody with like zero discipline and zero willpower, that's pretty big. That for me, that's a big deal. If I can do this and I'm not a disciplined person, that's showing lots of promise for me for a longer term sort of way of doing things. And that's generally because you no longer have to think about food. It's not taking all this brain power and willpower to keep doing it. As I go through my day, all I know is that at some point I need to fry up a steak or a bit of fish, and they're in my freezer. The only one thing I've got to remember is to get something out of the freezer and put it in the fridge, like to thaw out overnight. That's it. That's all I have to think about. And then during the day, I don't even have to think about food. I just know, sort of come around tea time, about 5 o'clock in the evening, I'll just chuck the frying pan on, lob a steak in, or a bit of meat or a bit of mince. I can squish a bit of mince down into a burger, chuck that in and eat it. And then it's like half an hour, job done. I've eaten, I've cleaned up, and I can get on with the rest of my life, not even having to think about food. And that, for me, is a game changer. Obviously, it's still early days. They reckon that you should try carnivore for an absolute minimum of 30 days, preferably 3 months. I have every intention of doing the full 30 days, and then I'll see where I am after that. Whether I go on another month or whether I swap back to keto, we'll see. We'll see how I feel then. But so far, even 17 days in, and again, I do acknowledge I'm still in a bit of a transition period from keto to carnivore. There is this thing you have to go through. Just like when you go from like the standard Western diet to keto, there is this kind of 3 weeks of transition where your body becomes fat adapted. And you can suffer things like what they call the keto flu, where you can feel a bit lethargic, feel a bit groggy for a week or two, and then it all goes away and it's all good. But you get the same thing when you transition from keto to carnivore. Same sort of thing. You do get a little bit of a dodgy stomach for a few days or for a few weeks even, and you can get that little lethargic sort of groggy sensations. And I had those pretty much in week 1. I had some restless nights in week 1, but now things are really starting to settle down again, and I'm doing okay. So what I've noticed so far with like 17 days into carnivore, one of the most significant things I've noticed is my anxiety levels have significantly dropped. Now, I'm a person with anxiety. I have a generalized anxiety disorder. That was my official diagnosis. And I'm kind of sat here thinking this actually may now be a thing of the past, which is good. That's definitely a plus for me. And also, there's this calmness that comes with it. Everything's much more measured and just it's really hard to explain. I'm not quite sure how to explain it, but I've got this calmness that I never had before. It's really quite strange and really quite welcome. It's as if I've just slowed down a bit more, and I'm not quite doing things as crazily as I might have done things in the past. And yeah, everything just seems a little bit more measured, like my energy levels through the day. I don't get peaks and troughs of energy anymore. I've just got this steady flow of energy right through the day. And come about 11 o'clock at night, I'll start getting quite drowsy and want to hit the hay, and then I'll sleep really deeply right through. Head will hit the pillow, say about midnight, and my head will hit that pillow, and I won't remember a thing until 7 o'clock in the morning, when I wake up and just like ready to start my day. And throughout the day, my energy levels are just completely steady. I'm not getting that sort of afternoon lull, where you just want to go and have a lie down for half an hour or a power nap or something. I'm not getting that. It's just everything's just steady through the day. It's really, really quite cool. As far as my digestive issues go, they are really disappearing fast. I'm really doing okay. There is, when you transition to carnivore, there are sort of, for the first 3 weeks, they say you're going to get slightly iffy stomach, and you might be not leaving the house that often. To be honest, I haven't had that in any major way, and it's generally been okay. I have had a few days where I think, this is not good. But again, those are slowly becoming. I can sense they're slowly fading away, and there's this calmness, this settledness that wasn't there before, and so yeah, I'm quite encouraged so far. So anyway, this is still an ongoing journey. It's kind of an experiment for me. It's like a fact-finding mission, if you like. And of course, the real question in the back of my mind is this something that can be a permanent lifestyle change? Something I can do for the rest of my life. And as I mentioned in the last video, the whole point of me doing this is to do whatever I can to fix once and for all those lifelong overweight issues I've always had, and the digestive issues that I've had for most of my adult life. And I really don't want to be taking those types of issues forward into older age, because I know that they will just get worse, and they will cause more complications and probably lead to all sorts of horrible diseases and suffering. I just don't want to get involved with that, so I need to fix this. And this, at the moment, is giving me a little bit of hope that that fix may be on the way. So anyway, right at the start of the year, I had a good stern talking to myself, essentially told myself to pull my finger out and deal with these things. I'm going to be like 53 this year, and if I don't do this now, it's just going to get harder and harder to deal with, and the chances are I'm just never do it. So it is kind of now or never. And in a way, that's why I'm making these videos, because it's really important that I record, just how important doing this is. So, in the months ahead, if I start to wane, I can come back and watch these videos and then kind of give myself the kick up the backside that I need to knuckle down and carry on with it, So, the question is this going to be sustainable? Obviously, that's the key. How long can I go on and keep eating, a steak a day and then fasting for 23.5 hours a day? To be honest, I mean, it is actually quite easy to do at the moment, and I have surprised myself at sticking with it because, it's fairly effortless. But the question is, could I do it for the rest of my life? I don't know. I'm thinking probably not. On the other hand, I could do keto for the rest of my life. Like I say, I actually did it for a whole year a number of years ago. But back then I was doing it to lose weight, and I wasn't losing the weight because I was doing it slightly wrong. But it wasn't hard to stick to, and I could quite easily do it for another year. The only reason I gave up on it was it wasn't achieving my goals at the time, which was to lose the weight. My goals now have changed. My goals are still to lose the weight, but also to regain my health and to get rid of all these these horrible issues that I've been having. So the focus has changed, and that, I think, is going to be the key in making the keto lifestyle sustainable, because it is sustainable. It is easy to do. You're never hungry, which is absolutely the key. You don't have to think too much about making keto meals. I mean, when I started off keto, 2 months ago, I actually made myself little recipe cards of everything that I made. And I was quite happy to stick with quite a small array of different foods. I got really proficient at making them. And it was quite easy for me, to knock together a keto meal really quickly. So again, it's one of those things you don't have to think too much about. And if you do sort of stand there thinking, oh, what can I have today? Just grab a recipe card right in front of you. Take a look at it. They've all got pictures on. And if I fancy, say like a little keto pizza, as long as I've got the ingredients in stock, I can throw it together there and then. It's not an issue. It's not a big deal. It's the same as just preparing any normal food. You're just using slightly different ingredients. So anyway, I've rambled on for a long time. I have no idea even if I'm going to put this video up, because it seems so long as I'm recording it. Obviously, it's still early days, but even after 2 months, I currently remain determined to figure this out. And I'm putting myself out there with this pledge to keep going, and would really appreciate if you guys can kind of hold me to account. If I start to wane, anytime you see me in a video and I've got a McDonald's or something in my hand, do feel free to give me a tap on the shoulder and maybe send a link back to this video and say, oi, not that that's going to happen. I'm confident that's not going to happen. But I think the one thing I have to be careful of is letting this become an obsession. I think the biggest key to making this work, this must not consume everything, about me. This thing that I'm doing must not become me. It's just something that I do on the side. I think of it as a very, very minor hobby. If I want to find some new keto recipes or something, I'm not going to look at this as a how can I put this? I often see people on YouTube, they've got YouTube channels, like Ketovore. Actually, Ketovore is another thing. That's kind of like a bridge between keto and carnivore. But yeah, there are like carnivore channels and keto channels where the hosts on those channels are, you can see like the keto diet or the carnivore diet is absolutely everything they live for. Their entire life revolves around carnivore or keto. And I don't want this to become who I am. I just want it to be like a simple little thing, like somebody will just grab a sandwich, I'll just grab a piece of meat. It's something you don't have to think about, something that doesn't define you. So I'm not sure I could do a keto channel. If I did, I would definitely have to put it across as something I do on the side, and it isn't my entire existence, like a lot of these channels I've seen out there. Like I say, these people just, don't get me wrong, they've got some great tips and some great advice, but it just seems like their entire existence revolves around this way of eating, and I've got to be really careful not to let that happen, not to obsess over it. So anyway, like I say, I've rambled on long enough. I just wanted to cover all my basics, just to follow up on the video from before. And again, I really do appreciate all of the kind words that you guys have expressed and are rooting for me to make this work. And I know some of you have actually said that just me covering this topic has prompted you to sort of look at your own lives and have a little think about, the future. And, you feel like I've given you a little bit of a poke. And to those people, I say, all power to you. I find it a marvellous trait when people see their own shortcomings or flaws and they make determined steps to address them. When people can read the road ahead and make decisions to avoid the potholes, that currently seem inevitable, but are again currently avoidable, it's always got to be a good thing, So, if anyone wants to join in, I'll be happy to put a few recipe videos up or something like that. Feel free to let me know in the notes below what sort of videos you'd like to see. Perhaps if you have any questions. Obviously, I'm not qualified in any way, shape or form, but I have looked into this quite deeply and have a little bit of a layman's knowledge, which I'm trying to apply here. But I would be happy to address any questions if I'm able to. And it might make for another video. So anyway, that's the end of the video. I don't know how long this is. It's probably going to be quite long and rambly, and I will probably be now recording a little warning at the beginning that it's going to be a long and rambly video, but the sort of thing you could probably put on in the background. But until next time, thank you for watching. Have a great rest of the day, and I will see you in the next video. Until then, take care.